Good afternoon. I'd like to call this October meeting of the Delaware County Juvenile Detention Board of Managers to order. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A few procedural items. We have joining us virtually today, let's see, Chris Iserman and I believe Councilwoman Schaefer is on there virtually as well, along with who's here in person. We did have an executive session yesterday to briefly cover matters that are deemed of public safety in nature. And with that, our next item is public comment, the first round, which is for only items that are on the agenda for today specifically. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the board?
I'll make this quick. Oh, sorry, I'm going to say my name. Sorry about that.
Name, address, and leave your...
Sure. Colleen Kennedy, 8723 Westchester Pike in Upper Darby. I just wanted to get a clarification. Is this the architectural program design? Could someone just tell me what this is?
Yes.
So I understand. Is that what it is? Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. If anything further, the next item is for an approval of the minutes from the September 20th meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments before we vote? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right. Next, as always, is a report from our Juvenile Court Probation Services Office.
Kirsten Keenan, Juvenile Probation. We currently have 4 males who are detained in Bucks County Youth Center, 1 male detained in Montgomery County Youth Center, 2 female direct files in Morgantown, and 1 male direct file in Abraxas, Morgantown as well. Any questions?
Any questions, board members?
The ones that are direct filed that are in other facilities, just for my edification, are we the only county that has to ship our juveniles who are direct files outside of the county?
We have to send them outside of the county unless a judge has an interest of justice hearing, but otherwise they would be held in our local county. So yes, we have to ship them out. I believe Chester County won't take any of their own direct files. They immediately file interest of justice hearings for direct file youth. Montgomery County does have a direct file unit for their own direct files, and Bucks County has a unit for their own direct files, but they will not be taking any out-of-county direct files. So the only place, the option we have to take out-of-county direct files at this moment is Abraxas Morgantown, and I believe we just had a contract go through with Ohio, Jefferson County Detention Center, so we may be able to use them if they have open space.
If you know, are we in the minority in terms of counties that don't have any direct files staying within the county?
From my conversations with other counties, some of them, like I said, filed their hearings right away, but I do know that of the local areas, Montgo and Bucks have their own direct file units,
Okay.
and will have interest of justice hearings, and then I guess it would be up to a judge in that county whether or not they want to move them to their local prisons.
But just to be clear to the judge's question, with 68 counties, and I realize a lot of them are significantly smaller than Delaware County, but many, if not most, other counties don't have their own detention centers. So I got to think that there are others that would
They
not
would be shipping them out as well
Yeah.
to other places. So we are fighting with other centers for those beds.
So we're far from the only ones that are
Yes.
sending direct files out of county.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any other questions, Your Honor? Or the staff? Maybe. Sorry. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
That's it.
The YouTube video might not be working.
Sorry?
I'm very sorry. The YouTube video might not be working.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe it's just that. Thank you.
There may, sometimes there's a delay, I think, in it starting. All right. Superintendent Irizarry is not with us today as he's attending a meeting out of state, a conference out of state. But Mr. Walker, I believe you're filling in for the superintendent?
Yes, I am. My name is Nelson Walker. I'm filling in today for Superintendent Irizarry. Today I come before you asking for a motion to move forward with the center's architectural program diagram, which was sent out for your review. As you may know, our board design subcommittee has been meeting twice a month to advance what key elements are needed in the development of a county-operated secure youth center here in Delaware County. This diagram relates to the layout of the future center in terms of program use and should be used to visualize how the programs relate to the building form. The approval of this diagram is a crucial step for our contracted architectural firm in the completion of the feasibility study, which we optimistically hope to bring before you next month. Here with me today to give further details or answer any additional questions you may have is Mr. Bob Reed, who will be online, and Mr. Brendan Murphy of Spiesel Architectural Group Incorporated, and our county's Public Works Director, Ms. Danielle Floyd.
Okay, so can everyone hear me?
We can.
Great. Thank you for your time. This is Bob Reed. Is there a presentation I believe is loaded? Is that something you can see right now?
Not quite yet, but I think we're working on it. So
Yeah,
give
and
us one moment, I'll
that's
let
something
you
that
know
can
when
be
it's up.
shared. Great.
All right, the presentation is up.
Great. If you could forward to the next slide, please. So in terms of the agenda, and we understand we don't have much time here, and we respect your time greatly. We want to go through what we understood to date in terms of project mission statement. And a project mission statement for us is just to make sure that we're on the same page in terms of what the goals are for the project moving forward. So we'll review that. And then look at lessons learned from a number of different other facilities that we've visited as well as researched, and then review the program diagram that was forwarded to all of you, and then just talk about next steps. So if we could go to the next page, please. So, and this comes from, even though we put it on a slide, it really comes from our understanding of what we heard from all the stakeholders that we've spoken to, that we had the great opportunity to speak to a number of people across the county related to this project. In reading it, Delaware County aspires to create renovations and potential additions to the Juvenile Detention Center at the Lima campus that reflects and represents and reflects the values of the county as they strive to create a positive environment that protects our youth and community while simultaneously fulfilling a fervent belief that our youth are capable of and deserve the opportunity to receive support, to be happy and contributing members of our society. And also we understood not to go halfway. So there's that element, and there's a next page, but in terms of looking at supporting points that we want to make sure that we have multi-purpose facility in looking at prevention, detention, and rehabilitation is very critical, reflecting the best practices of trauma-informed care. And something that was resounding in terms of looking at parental community partner involvement being critical, making sure that we have the opportunity for as much support as possible for our youth. Impression of the building should be modern, supportive, and academic, as opposed to a corrections feel or a detention feel. Must meet licensing requirements of the Commonwealth, and balance initial and long-term fiscal responsibility, and make sure that we're as wise as possible for the Delaware County in terms of use of funds now and into the distant future, and also making sure that's sustainable, that we're looking at sustainable practices to make sure that we're being responsible with the energy that we're using and being able to reduce costs long-term, as well as other sustainable elements that we can incorporate into the project. So if we could go back one slide. I did go through that fairly quickly, but we feel that it reflects what we heard. But we want to see if there was any comments from the board in terms of whether that you feel that this represents what our goals are and what our understanding of the project was. Are there any comments?
Comments from board members? All right, I take our silence to mean support for the words put on the page here.
Okay, great. So then if we can go to the next slide after that. So then in terms of looking at peer youth center visits and research and key takeaways, what we saw was the best centers had a very supportive culture, being critical in terms of the many of the directors really felt that they were more principals of schools as opposed to seeing themselves as the head of a detention facility, and there was really a great family environment that we saw. Understanding security was critical, but it was a matter of there were some very supportive cultures that we saw. Looking at a well-kept, warm academic appearance that we saw consistently on facilities that we visit. Impressive entry lobby. Remote and local locking. What we have at Delaware County is just local locking. There's just a key in any door. So what we saw in 3 of the 4 facilities that we saw in peer institutions, that they had remote locking as well. So they gave them greater control over the facility. Trauma informed was a consistency that we saw. Really everyone looking at the opportunity for folks that were on the secure and the non-secure side to have an opportunity to get out into nature to the extent that they can and do gardening, whether it's in the secure side or outside the secure area. Light was really critical in a number of these facilities, making them feel much more pleasant for the youth that we saw there and for all the folks that were visiting as well. Murals and artwork, something we don't see at Delaware County, but we saw consistently across all the facilities, and in some cases just mind-boggling in terms of how beautiful the artwork was, whether it was in-house staff who were doing the work or having students and youth helping to create artwork that they could really feel that they contributed to some of the beauty in these facilities. In many of the facilities we saw, the bedrooms had desks and chairs as well, so that to try to create more of a home environment that youth could be reading a book or doing some homework in their bedroom. Community spaces, really beautiful spaces, nice high ceilings, nice light, movable furniture. Understanding still having furniture that is cleanable and is safe, but more comfortable and giving more flexibility within some of these spaces as opposed to bolting the furniture to the floor. Attractive outdoor recreation we saw consistently. In many cases, it was internal to in an internal courtyard to the facility. We see at Delaware County, we have the opportunity to do that, as well as maybe even have some more outdoor recreation space because of the property that we have there, which is really lovely in terms of the outdoor space. Food was something that was critical that we saw. In some cases, the food was really deemed excellent, and in some others, it was more. It was not. It was it may be coming over from the prison sent over or something that Aramark had sent through. So it really seemed to be a differentiator in terms of different facilities that we saw, where the food really seemed to help the spirits of the folks that were in there in terms of having choice and having some good food. Looking at multi-purpose areas, flexible areas that can be used for a number of different activities, obviously for things that the youth are participating in, but also inviting in family and community to the extent possible to have flexibility in some of these dining areas seem to be very attractive. And movable furniture, as I indicated, and also medical accessible to intake. At Delaware County, the medical was actually as far away from the intake as possible in that building. So something that we've heard consistently from Davey Rosari and the stakeholders on this project, but we also saw it consistently in other facilities in terms of getting that the medical suite accessible to intake. All right, if we can move on. So then we worked hard with the stakeholders on this project to come up with this diagram, which you have seen, and I can go through this unless there's any questions to start with before I head in to give a description.
I think you proceed.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you. So on the lower, and what this is and what we asked of the county is not to try to deal with the program, how the program goes together, what are the pieces that go into this building, and what are their adjacencies at the same time that you're trying to solve the design of the building. We ask for us to first get a good understanding of what the county is looking at doing, and then we put it on us to come back to you with, okay, how does this program work well in the existing facility? Because it can be overwhelming to try to solve both at the same time. We feel this gives a good opportunity opportunity for this group as well as others to understand in terms of how the facility could work. So in the lower right-hand corner is a secure visitor entry, something that right now in our existing facility is right next to our intake, which creates some challenges. So in this case, it's a matter of making sure we're coming into the facility for visitors to have a safe entry into the building, to have something that there's a lobby and a receptionist that can greet them outside of the secure area. If you look on the left-hand side of the diagram, there's a dashed line around most of the elements. That's the secure perimeter of the facility. So we're showing on the right-hand side of that, when you come into the visitor entry, then you have that place to come in that can be a nice waiting area, so that if you're a family member or if you're a visitor, an attorney, or other folks who are coming to visit our youth. And then from there, they would go. Visitors would go to the left into the secure area of the building, where then they could go into visitation where they're with their youth or the youth that are being visited. So then there's the opportunity then to come in and have that visitation, have a courtroom and chaplain in that area, as well as private meeting spaces and social work spaces and case managers, so that as someone would come in to help our youth, they have easy access from the secure visitor entry into this area. But then from there, there's security from that point to get deeper into the secure side. So really, you would have folks who come through the visitor entry really only go this far into that first bubble on the left. Before, so that they can have their needs met, and then come back out to through the visitor entry. And then from there, in terms of on the left side of the building, then we have the secure in the center of it. I'm sorry, not building in this diagram. We have a secure core. So then we're looking at everything revolves around those spaces, and that you have the ability to have those areas in the secure core, such as a control booth that would have visual access through the whole facility through cameras and screens that they would have in that area. Shift managers' offices that would have access into having the ability to have a central location that they can then serve the whole facility. And we also show mediation support spaces. They wouldn't just necessarily happen in the secure core. We have it there because what has become very evident in speaking to the stakeholders of this project is having the ability to have some de-escalation rooms, so that if a youth is having some particular challenges that they need to cool off a bit and get away from some other folks for a short period of time, that there's opportunities throughout the facility to have mediation de-escalation rooms. Support space we can access from the whole secure area. And then if we go to the below the secure core, that's the secure intake entry. So then if a youth is coming into the facility through a police vehicle or a sheriff's vehicle, they would come in through the secure intake area at the bottom of in the light blue. So there's an enclosed sally port there that we have currently, but this enclosed sally port is directly adjacent to our visitor entry right now. We see the need to have those separated would be much better functionally, but you would still have the secure entrance through the sally port, and then you would go through the processing lobby. The youth would go through the processing lobby to through the secure vestibule to make sure that the police who would come in, or the sheriff, they can't go into the secure vestibule with their weapons on them. So there would be a place to store that before they go into the secure vestibule, and then the youth would go through the processing lobby, would store personal items in the storage room there, and then that would go through the processing and then receive their uniform and linens through that process of intake. And then what you see from that area of the secure intake is there's a line over to the healthcare wing. Something that's critical, as was indicated earlier, is having the access to the medical, the healthcare wing directly from the secure intake, which doesn't happen currently. Currently, it's on the second floor of one of the residential wings, which is on the other side of the building. So this would represent getting that medical suite into the direct adjacency to the secure intake for processing. Then if we go back to the secure core, you see a line that then goes directly to the left into the purple area, which is the residential wing. So and there's two of these. You would see, that's why we have to the far left in the shadow times 2, because we're looking at 24 beds in this facility, and currently there's 12 beds per floor in the residential pod. There's a lot of similarities between what happens there currently and what we're planning in the future in terms of a multi-purpose activity space that all the youth can go into, having the individual bedrooms there, having a staff office and control room directly adjacent to the day room so that there's visual access into that space, as well as having visual access up and down the corridors to make sure they can control the area. Also, something that doesn't exist there now is that mediation and a support space that I had mentioned earlier, that in the residential pods, there would also be that place that if someone's having some particular challenges that they need to be separated from other folks so that they can receive the care that they need, that there's a mediation space, de-escalation space directly accessible in the residential pod. Right, and then if we go back through the secure core and then go to the upper left, there's a recreation wing, so that we have a gym, having lounge and game rooms, having accessibility to an outdoor recreation area that would have a community garden as well, fitness center as well, and then also you see there a snack booth, something that we don't have currently, but intend to have, something that if a youth is getting to higher levels of trust because of being on good behavior, that they could have some benefits once a week, once a day, whatever the interest is in terms of providing some additional a snack or something that they would see as a benefit that could be accessible in that recreation area, as well as recording studio that could be accessible through the game room, having opportunities for the youth to engage in some activities that they're going to find interesting and rewarding. And then again, back from the secure core in the middle again, if we go north on the page into the dining area, having a kitchen, cafeteria, storage room, and secure receiving and an office. So having, and what we have now is in the existing facility in terms of the size. The kitchen is bigger than we ultimately will need, but the size of the dining should work out well for our future use as well. Then again, back through the secure core and going to the upper right of that area is the education area, so that we have classrooms that we would need, art classrooms, computer lab, library, so that we have the ability to provide education as needed to our youth that are going to be staying at the facility. So then if we, as you see the line from the secure area, there's a line that, like I said, had gone back through the family visitation area, but there's also a direct line to the administration suite, so they have the ability to go into the secure side. But that orange administration suite also provides us the opportunity to connect to the staff entry from the outside coming into the building, as well as going up into the green area of the community support space, so that there's the ability for administration to be that knuckle in between the secure side and the community support side of the building. So then as you would go from that orange administration suite to the upper right to the community core, then there would be a lobby that folks, visitors can come into the building, that our youth who are not part of the secure side can come into the building. So we have a lobby, vestibule, and public toilets. And from that point, then folks can go get help from the community service bubble directly to the left of that community core bubble, so that there's workspaces there, mental wellness areas, resource transition areas, so that whether it's youth who are transitioning through the facility from the secure side and getting some additional resources as they go out into the community, or also resources for family members and guardians to come into the facility who may benefit for some resources, and that can be provided in some of these meeting rooms and in some of these spaces that can provide services from folks within Delaware County, but also it's definitely seen as being partners in the community that can come in and help provide services as well for our youth. And then back to that community core, then there's two more bubbles, large bubbles. The one directly to the up and north of the community core is the education wing there as well, looking at multi-purpose classrooms, a music suite for production of music or listening to music, computer lab and study hall, as well as even a barbershop is shown there as giving an opportunity to teach our youth potentially to be a barber or to get a haircut there. And then if we come back through the community core and then go to the upper left of that area, an additional green area for recreation and events, having a gym and indoor recreation area, not as large as the full gym that's in that's in the secure side, because it wasn't seen as being needed to be that large, but something that's about half that size to provide opportunities for recreation and indoor activities within the building, as well as right below that a public event space, something that can provide an opportunity for functions to happen within the facility that can allow 30, 40 people get together in an event there. And then there's a student lounge and cafe, a place to hang out, that is part of that recreation area as well. And then in the lighter green, you can see in the upper left-hand side of that bubble is the outdoor recreation and community garden there as well. And these areas are, so that on is the extent of the non-secure community support side. And what you can see is there's not extensive lines between the two sides, between secure and non-secure. The reality is it's just going through the administration. It would be the only link between the two, and we would want to make sure that these areas are separated from each other physically, and also just to make sure that there's not visual access from one side to the other. Could I ask if there are any questions regarding this programming diagram in terms of how the building is intended to be organized?
Do we have any questions?
I have some questions. I guess what I'm having difficulty understanding is how, like, does this plan fit into the existing building footprint? I mean, I understand that the non-secure side's not going to, I'm guessing, but does the secure side, or is this sort of a wish list, I guess, and then the feasibility study will be done, and then like more of a kind of architectural plan will be drawn up to show how we could have all these programs in the current site?
Yeah, so you're definitely you're hitting it on the head. We're not there yet in terms of saying, okay, how does this exactly become architecture? That's the next step. That's where we wanted to make sure that we're looking at, do we have all the right pieces here? And then as we then look at the next step, if we get approval that the program makes sense to you, then we are then tasked with looking at to what extent can we accommodate our needs in a renovation, and then also looking at what may be needed in terms of additions to the building. So we were dually charged with looking at a renovation and looking at renovation addition. In terms of a number of the items on the left-hand side can be accommodated within existing space, but not all of them, and they're not all in the right place right now. So that's going to be part of our process to look at where do they go in the building, because there's some things, like I had mentioned, the visitor entry is right next to intake. The medical suite is the furthest away from the intake. So some of these things that need to be in a better location that may cause us to look at some additions in terms of how these items are going to be organized, but we're not there yet. That's why we want to specifically look at making sure that we have all the right pieces first before we go into the building. And to your point, yes, the non-secure side, since none of that exists currently, is unlikely to fit within the existing building. It's more likely to be additions onto the building.
Your Honor.
Have you talked to Director DiMatteo about this design yet?
Not this we're showing right now. I don't know if David Rosari has shared who he shared this diagram with. This was shared, I understand, with the group that we're in front of right now, but I'm not sure where it was shared beyond that. But this was just finalized recently in preparation for this meeting.
Yeah, I think that would be essential because I think she would be, and her staff would be able to give you a better sense of what it would be like with the juveniles that we have coming in, because there's no one size that fits all. Some juveniles will be there for a short time, some of them are going to be repeaters, so to speak, and some of them are going to be, in fact, there for a short time because there's going to be a hearing that will put them on the adult side. So having that conversation with juvenile probation would be essential. But I think what you have is a really, really auspicious project. It seems quite challenging in terms of what I've seen at the few facilities that I've been at, and they've been more than what we've had in the past. But I'm not sure how well we'd be able to do this because I'm not the one counting the money. That's for sure. So I'd like it all if I could have it.
Yeah, I guess I'll share my own thoughts, which are, somewhat with the same degree of, I don't know what the right word is, but this feels ambitious. I think there's some things on here that feel more like perhaps a wish list than a must-have, particularly when we're talking about a census that's been pretty small. To have things like a recording studio and an educational barbershop, they just seem a bit, obscure to put the money in. But I think if this is intended as kind of a, again, a wish list, and then this sort of intersects with what, things would actually cost, given what we have there, I get the point of this exercise.
Yeah, well, let me just, being one who does recording and all that good stuff, the recording studio is no bigger than his desk over there, and a barber chair is 2 of these chairs put together in the middle of the floor. They seem like they're luxuries, but they're actually, the recording studio is going to help immensely, or someplace where kids can de-escalate around music since they love it so much, is one of those things that helps calm the situation. So it's actually a very good tool, and I think it's been proven to be very useful. And hygiene is everything. Speak to any woman or any guy about their hair or their, just start with their hair. And when it looks good, they feel better, and when it looks a mess, and not that we're there for grooming, but it's just, again, it's one of those things that so from a cost standpoint, I don't think it's going to cost that much to do those things.
And back to my point, I think, again, if this is really intended as without really getting into what this is going to cost for
Right.
specific areas, and this is more a sense of, a general kind of framework that will then get more drilled into as we talk about true, like, where do things go and what do they cost, and perhaps things that might seem in a more abstract sense here as being a major expenditure of time, of money and real estate. It ends up not really being all that much when we get into the realities.
Yeah, one of the things we did test.
Okay, we'll get through.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that we did task them with, and I think some of us have had an opportunity to do it, is go to some of the facilities in our sistering or neighboring counties and whatnot, and really pull out some of the best practices of those places to make sure that if we're going to do it in Delco, we do it better than everybody else. But that was part of what it was. So a lot of these things did come because when we talked about them in our meetings, these were best practices. So they've seen them someplace else, and the staff there said, as a result of having this were some of the outcomes that came about. So I think that's how some of them got in here.
Great, and I think if there are other members of the facility subcommittee who want to speak to this, that's probably a good place to start.
If I could, I would just,
Yes.
Can you all hear me okay?
We can.
I just wanted to underscore the points that Reverend Turner made and assure folks that we were definitely not looking for luxury items or things that were, really pretty but of no therapeutic value to the young people in detention. I think, folks who've dealt with young people in detention can tell you a lot of behavioral infractions occur around things like whether or not a kid had a comb to comb their hair, whether or not they had a pro-social outlet for their frustration. And so, I just want to just assure everyone that when you hear things like recording studio and barber shop, it's not because we're trying to make a summer camp. We're definitely taking into account, what the real meaning of the phrase trauma-informed is. And that's what a lot of these programs are directed at addressing. And in terms of cost, I assume at some point we're going to get to, cost feasibility questions, but we've definitely looked at these programs as having, utility well beyond whether or not they look good or feel good for folks who frankly are not even going to be staying in these places. It's really about the therapeutic and clinical value.
Got it. Thank you, Ms. Williams. I think Ms. Fulmore Townsend, did you have a remark?
Yes, I wanted to first acknowledge how incredibly difficult this must have been, both to take all of the lessons that you learn, but to combine that into comprehensive programming and think about a space that is quite frankly limited, has a negative history, and sort of reimagine what it could be. I also want to underscore my support for the innovative thinking of including things like the barber training and experience there, but also the music, both from a therapeutic standpoint and a career development standpoint. And I think we have taken on a very challenging task, and it would be in our best interest to be both as bold and innovative as we can, and then let the boundaries, which are real, space, money, resources, and time, drive the constraints, but not let the limits of our imagination forget that our charge was to be innovative. And how I think we came together and decided that innovation was needed in a situation like this, and also to maximize the multi-purpose nature of a space because the census was so low. And so I do think we have a unique opportunity to be at the forefront, and I just don't want us to forget, not just Delaware County doing it better, but Delaware County being the first to do something really, really different in this space. So.
Thank you. And look, I don't want my remarks to be taken as, diminishing the efforts of the subcommittee to really look at best practices elsewhere and put forth what really can make us all proud as being a model for other locations around the country perspective. And I think we all get that.
Absolutely.
All right. Do we want to go back to the presentation?
Okay, so then in terms of that, are there any other questions regarding the program diagram before I move to the next slide?
I have one
Is
more
it making
question.
sense to you?
Yeah, before you do,
Yes.
I think we have one more here.
Yeah, just one more.
Okay.
Is this the footprint like the square footage that's listed for, let's say, the bedrooms? Is that in line with Pennsylvania Code 3800, or is that something that's going to be kind of worked out once the feasibility study is done, just to make sure that we're...
Well, yeah, they will be in accordance with 3800. The current spaces in terms of the bedrooms specifically are, but that is in tandem with looking at what are the needs of what we hear from Delaware County. We also are doing code searches and making sure that what we're recommending is going to be in accordance with 3800 as well as other building codes and other requirements that we would have for the project.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I think
Any other comments before moving on?
you can proceed.
Okay. Great. So could we go to the next slide then? So then in terms of next steps for us, it's a matter of looking at program approval from the board, understanding there's some comments that were made in terms of some of the spaces, so that it's not that there won't be an opportunity to come later and say, and bring up some of those same questions. But looking at, with considering what we heard so far in terms of the comments, the lion's share of that program seemed to make sense to folks, at least that we didn't hear a different view on that. So if there's the ability then to approve to move forward from that, then what we'll do is get into initial planning recommendations in terms of how that program fits within the building and the parts that don't fit within the building or that have to be reorganized because of how the existing facility has some shortcomings in terms of where there's some spaces located. So we're then, with approval of the program, then we will work to move into how does that program work with the existing building, with the existing site, and then as we progress through that, then it's a matter of also associating that with cost estimates. Then we'll get into cost estimating once we make sure that the plan is being organized in a correct way from your perspective. Right.
So,
and then thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to clarify. So are you looking for there to be a motion and a vote on approval of the programmatic framework from this body at this meeting, or are you sort of giving us forewarning that this is something we need to consider and you have no expectation that we're going to have that decision today? I just wanted, and maybe that's not a question for you, maybe that's for the chair, but I'm curious about where we are in this decision tree, so to speak.
Yeah, Marie, I think the plan really is to weigh in here today, and understanding that we're not approving a shovel-ready proposal here. This is more, given what we've heard today and what we've received, is there support with the comments that have been made as being reflective of where we want to be. Again, meaning that, if there are small elements of this where there might be individual objections, there is plenty of time still for that to be reflected in the next sort of down the path check-in points. Does that make sense?
So sort of broad strokes, are we good with where it's going, understanding that pending feasibility and all of that stuff, there may be changes?
That's right.
Okay, great.
So are there other comments before we, if someone would like to make a motion to support this?
So moved.
Second.
So motion is second. Again, any further comments on this design presentation before we vote? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we have approval.
Thank you for your time and your attention.
Thank you for the presentation.
All right. Have a great night.
Same to you. Mr. Walker, did you have anything more from the monthly report?
No, I didn't.
All right, thank you. Is there any old business for today? In terms of new business, there is one item I wanted to raise that was on the agenda for County Council. We had our agenda meeting this morning, and we have the voting meeting tomorrow. And it's with regard to a new contract with Jefferson County for youth detention. And historically, as I think we're all aware, these contracts are owned by Human Services, but have been, for lack of a better word, kind of day-to-day managed by adult probation, juvenile probation. And I think that is somewhat of a relic of prior to the creation of this board. And so as part of our conversation this morning, a number of council members said, hey, has this gone before the Juvenile Detention Board of Managers for weighing in? And it really had not. So I wanted to raise that to this board to see if there was any comments on it. I don't know if, Dr. Taylor, I don't know if there's really much to say beyond the fact that it's similar to the contracts that we have with other counties. It doesn't have any beds that are, reserved for Delaware County per se. It's an as is contract where we can tap into it if there's availability. But I don't think there was anything more that really necessitated highlighting other than the fact that it's going to go in with the other county contracts that we currently have.
And my understanding is that they would continue to utilize the closer facilities. They would go to those first, and if there are no available beds, then they would move out. And this would be the one that I believe this is the farthest away out of all of our facilities. So this would be kind of almost the last one. If there are no beds available anywhere else, then that would be the last one that would be tapped.
Yeah, but again, going forward, I personally made the request, and I think others on council affirmed it, is I'd like for these contracts to be ones that our superintendent is at the very least weighing in on, or is having a significant say in entering into them, and they go before this board.
So in terms of that,
And-
as we're trying to build that process, or as you think about that, so are you saying that you would like him to go out and assess the site with, I guess, Ms. DiMatteo's team or someone from his team to go out and assess the site, similar to whatever the process is that?
Certainly. I mean, he is the superintendent of detention, and if we have a contract, if we're outsourcing that service, I think the superintendent of detention needs to have a say in that.
So I guess that was going to be my question. So was he and his staff not part of this current contract?
I don't know if you guys want to, I don't know the answer to that.
I can't speak to it.
During our meetings, but I'll confirm. Can I confirm? Have some time to confirm with them to see if there was any conversations with him and Chief DiMatteo to make sure, or how do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I suspect that he's been made aware. I'd be very surprised if this is news to him. That would be very concerning to me if that were the case. I don't imagine that, especially given the fact that this is one of a number of contracts and we won't be using it unless there isn't something closer. This seems like a fairly harmless thing for this board to support, but procedurally, I really have problems with the idea of saying personally that I'm going to support it if I'm not even sure that the superintendent of detention is even aware of it.
I concur. I mean, I feel exactly the same way. I know in the past he's run by us the terms of contracts and let us know, which were negotiable and which were not, and what his recommendation is. And I did not see something similar as it related to this to Jefferson County. So I would personally not be in favor of moving forward until he and his staff have looked at it. But, others may feel differently, and I'm sure we can put it up for a vote.
So, and just to lay a base of like where we are, in terms of our other contracts with like Chester County or Montgomery County or Bucks County and the other facilities that we currently use, Abraxas, they hadn't been a part of the process before then. And it had always been, it went through the courts, it went through Juvenile, and Ms. DiMatteo's team assessed it, however. And I know Ms. DiMatteo brought this up in one of our previous meetings, that they were looking at facilities in Ohio and in Jefferson County. And so I don't believe that this is a surprise to anyone. I think for us, we need to figure out what we would like to have happening going forward in terms of the process and how we would like to lay out the process now that we do have Mr. Irizarry and his team, and where we would like them to intervene, or not intervene, but just be a part of how we assess these facilities going forward.
Yeah, again, I'm pretty certain that the answer is going to be that Mr. Irizarry has had a voice in this. When we've talked about looking where else, in-state or out of state, we might have some options. He's been involved in that, but I just feel uncomfortable with the fact that we don't have an answer here, and he's unfortunately not with us today. What I would suggest, because I also want to balance it with the fact that there is a scarcity of beds across the state, and I don't want to see us delay a contract, too much for what is somewhat a procedural concern. What we could perhaps do is we could table it for tomorrow. It's, put it away for 2 weeks, and in that time, get an answer confirming from Mr. Irizarry that he's been involved with the raising of this contract. Or if we're even able to get a word from him between now and tomorrow night, we can do this via email. So is there support from this board?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that if not to delay, given, again, where we are, what we're doing, number of beds, et cetera, plus the fact that, as you said, it's kind of like the last outpost. I would hope that somebody could call David or whatever, and then maybe you bring it to the group as an email vote or something like that, or whatever is legally right, and then we can go forward from there.
Yeah, I think we're belaboring this a little bit. Do we want to just bring this forward to a vote, subject to confirmation from Mr. Irizarry that he's signed off on this contract?
Mr. Lazarus has some comments.
Executive Director Lazarus.
Board members, when Mr. Irizarry and I met last week, he was aware of this contract. I can't tell you for sure that he was deeply involved in its preparation, because we did go, I had seen it on the agenda last week before we met. So part of your answer is yes, he's aware of it, but I don't know how much he's been involved in it.
Okay, well, I know he's at a conference right now, but I got to think that in the next 24 hours, we can get a hold of him and get an answer to the board. Are folks okay with that?
Yeah, I think that would be ideal.
Okay. So is there a motion to support this contract with Jefferson County, subject to confirmation from the superintendent that he's signed off on it?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All
I'm
right,
going to abstain.
all right. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Is there any further new business for today?
Kevin, I have just one item I'd like to put forward.
Sure.
During today's agenda meeting, one of our colleagues, Councilwoman Ruther, made the suggestion/request that the entire council and the public be updated on where things stand. And I thought it was a good suggestion. So I'd just like to put out the suggestion that over the next month or two, Mr. Irizarry come to council and just give an update, on where things stand.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Dr. Taylor?
Yeah, I just have I think he was planning on coming in December or November after we get the architect report back here, the update on what the plan is going forward and the timeline. Just because the last time he came to present was before we went out for design phase with the group. Would we prefer to have him present now where we are right now and then again later, or just wait until we're able to have that information to present to?
I'm personally fine with the idea that it's something that's a bit more fully baked that he can present to council and to the public. Not that this isn't a public meeting, but to the council's audience. I think that makes more sense, personally.
Yeah, it's fine with me. I just think we should, get it on the calendar and make sure people know.
Yep. All right, any other new business for today? Hearing none, we have the next round of public comments. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak?
Colleen Kennedy, 8723 Westchester Pike. I'll try to make this quick. So first off, I just wanted to quickly talk about this diagram. Based on the agenda, the only information that we really had was Item B1, architectural program design, presentation / approval. I was able to look at this. There's a lot of information on here, and then we listened to the presentation, but we had the public comment before that, and then you did the presentation, you voted. So I would just respectfully request that at future meetings, if you're going to vote on something, that the information is new, that you make sure the public comment happens before that vote. And I would also recommend that you redo the vote. I know the vote will be exactly the same, but I would ask that you redo the vote at the next meeting and include a round of public comment before that. Secondly, I just want to reiterate a question that I've asked at many of these meetings. What efforts have been made to speak to those who have actually experienced juvenile detention or who are currently experiencing juvenile detention, or even their families, in the process of formulating your plans? I think that's really important. I just want to remind folks that the young people who are experiencing juvenile detention definitely didn't appoint folks to this board, and they don't have the right to vote for their county council members, and so they don't have an opportunity to redress their grievances in any sort of way, and you're making big decisions that could have a positive or a negative impact on their life. Secondly, I just would ask that, especially given the great idea of having a big update meeting for the wider community, I would ask that you think about ways to have those meetings and updates in more accessible ways. So having them maybe at a couple different times of day or a couple different days, or even having them at a couple of different locations. Because ultimately, we're here in media. Respectfully, most of the kids that are getting caught up in the system are not from media, they're from my community, and I would just really like for my community to have better opportunities to talk and to learn about what's going on. Finally, the last thing I just wanted to say is that based on this diagram and based on prior conversations, my understanding is that you're moving forward with a proposal or decision to have upwards of 24 beds. I just want to remind you that less than 10 people on daily average over the past 3 years have actually been in the system. So I think it's really, really in the wrong direction, no matter how ambitious or good some of these things are, to increase the number of beds. I think that if we are being ambitious and living by our values that many of us campaigned on, and that many of us volunteered to help with, we need to make sure that we're moving away from incarceration whenever possible. Thank you.
Any other public comments today? All right, any board member comments for today?
Yes.
Ron?
So I went to Lancaster County's Juvenile Detention Center with two of Mr. Irizarry's staff. And in the process of that tour of that facility, I saw a room where there was a book club. And the person who was running the book club talked about how positive it was and how good it was for youth. And at the very end, he said, well, what we do is we have the books available for the young people, and then they can read the books there, and then they leave them there. It's like you can't take the books out of the library. And when the session was over, one of the young men came up to him and said, can I take the book back to my room? And that struck me in terms of what impact that process had on that young man, for him to say, I want to continue to read. I want to continue to read this book, whatever it was. And so I guess I'm saying all that to say, I think we're all moving in the right direction. And sometimes we see the big picture and it's real tough, but to hear one young man say that that process, or whatever that experience was, affected him in such a way that he wanted to continue to learn. He wanted to continue to have whatever that positive experience was from reading that book. And so it's just something positive I wanted to share. Thank you.
Just add a library to the diagram.
Okay.
All right, anything else from board members for today? All right, if not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, no, I know. It's like, yeah, I was gonna